It's pre-release weekend, and in this video, we're going to break down just about everything I can think of that you might need to know to make this weekend and your pre-release event the most fun it can be. Because I want you to go to your LGS and just absolutely enjoy this experience, just like I did last week at the Calling Queenstown. And speaking of LGSs, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out my wonderful channel sponsor, MinMax Games. If you don't know MinMax Games, you need to know MinMax Games because they love the game of Flesh and Blood. They are a local game store through and through, and they support this channel, and they want to support so many other Flesh and Blood related things. You should give them your support. So if you want to pick up some heavy hitters and you can't get some from a local game store near you, head down into the description, pick some up from them because they'll ship it to you direct to your door, and you can crack open some heavy hitters, find those marvels, and celebrate with all of us at the MinMax team. So let's start by breaking down what this set is all about. This is all about the deathmatch arena. Within the world of Wraith, in between the Savage Lands and Solana and Volcor, lies what appears to be sort of like an arid desert, but in that arid desert there is the deathmatch arena, and that is where this set is taking place, where people can go and wager on fights, or you can enter yourself in if you believe and have confidence in your own abilities to fight and win lots of gold. So there's wagering, there's clashing, there's fighting, and there's a whole bunch of blood and guts in this set. And to understand what this set is doing, let's take a look at a few of the keywords and a few of the tokens that are very important to understand. Let's start with the wager mechanic. Wager is a keyword that can apply to an attack. You can play that attack out and you may elect to wager or not. And wagering essentially says, when you choose to wager, if the attack that is wagering hits, then you reap the benefits, you get the rewards. If the attack does not hit, then your opponent gets the rewards. There's always a winner. It could be you or it could be someone else. So in this case, Money Where Your Mouth is a card that's going to give +3 to your next attack. That applies to weapons, that applies to attack action cards. So it's giving +3, and it gives it the text, when this attack's a hero, you may wager a gold token with them, meaning that if you hit with that attack, you get a gold token. If you are completely blocked out on that attack, your opponent gets a gold token. So the wager mechanic is huge in this set, and choosing to wager or not at specific times could make or break the game. Clash is another keyword within this set that you really need to understand how it functions, because there can be winners, there can be losers, and there can be ties when it comes to clashes. The way clashing works, when this card is activated, or when the clash keyword is activated, both players flip the top of their respective decks. They show the top card. If either of those cards has more power or more attack than the other card, the person who flipped over the higher power wins and gets the reward. If you tie, let's say you both flip over non-attack action cards, nobody wins. There is no winner to that clash, and you just keep moving on with your life. Another incredibly important card type to know in this set are block cards. Block cards were included in the most recent social play kit, the Round the Table play kit, and block cards are essentially just blocking cards with an effect. These cards can only be played during the block step, and they cannot block from arsenal. I repeat, they cannot go into the arsenal and come back out. If you put a block card in your arsenal is locked until the end of the game. So always check what's going into the arsenal, because they are very good in this set. Block cards are good. They break one of the sort of back and forth tenets of this set, especially the 4-block ones. That being said, if you put them in your arsenal, you've played yourself. And finally, I think the last thing we need to talk about to really fully understand this set is overpower as a keyword. Overpower is a keyword that essentially says you may only block an attack with overpower with one action card. But if you're playing attack reaction cards, if you're playing block cards, if you're playing instants as well, which technically there are a few instants, those can add defense on top of an overpowered attack. Okay, now that we understand the keywords and the mechanics within this set that are being introduced to this set or revisited in this set, let's talk about the heroes, because this is incredibly important to know what you need to play and build within this set. Starting with the Brutes and Rhinar specifically. Rhinar, this is the OG WTR Brute, man. Rhinar's back. and better than ever, is doing the same thing. He says when you discard a card with 6 or more power during your action phase, Intimidate, meaning that you pick a random card from your opponent's hand and it goes into the banished face down until the end of their turn, which they get it back. And there are a lot of great synergies within this set for his Intimidate keyword. Of course, you have the old classics like Pack Hunt and Bear Fangs. These are both very good cards for both brute players. But you're also just looking at these cards that have natural 6 power, because if you discard one of those off of an effect, you get to Intimidate. And Intimidate is a very powerful effect in this specific meta because it breaks this back and forth parity that you'll find you get into in this set, where you block with 2 cards and maybe you attack for 6 or 7, and your opponent blocks with 2 cards and they attack for 6 or 7. This Intimidate keyword can break that wide open. And you can do even more than just that, because now we have access to Beat Chest. This is a brute keyword only, but it says as an additional cost, you can choose to discard a card from your hand with 6 or more power. That's good for Rhinar because it triggers his Intimidate effect. And you get a benefit if you beat Chest off of a lot of different cards. Like, for example, Assault and Battery here gives you an agility token. That's very, very good. You look at something like Rawhide Rumble. This intimidates again after you've discarded that 6. So you get 2 intimidates. Just look in your sealed pool to know if you should play Rhinar by counting the 6s. And of course, looking at the card quality of your overall 6s and 7s in your brute class cards as well. KO is the other hero that you could play if you want to play brute, and he is cracked in this set. He is very, very good in limited, and he's very, I would say, easy to put together, fairly consistent to play because of his main effect. And that main effect says this: attack action cards you own get +1 while they're in any zone other than the combat chain. So as long as you're not attacking with it, every card that you're playing gets +1, meaning that a 1 power attack is actually technically a 2 power attack. That doesn't matter. It's the 5 power attacks that become 6s that are very good. So this card officially is a 6 power card if you're not attacking with it. Why do you care? Well, think about what Beat Chest does. Beat Chest allows you to discard a card from your hand that's not on the combat chain, from your hand, a 6 power or more to trigger its effect, meaning that you can discard a lot of cards now that gain this extra power and become 6 power attacks. All of these yellows, this blue here is now a 6 power attack that can trigger effects. Even effects off of like Bear Fangs, which says draw a card, discard a card. If it's a 6, this gets +2. This is incredibly consistent to hit now, and this is the power that he has available to him. The best part, though, is that if you actually do discard a 6 or more power attack during your action phase, the first time you do, you get to create a Might token, which gives +1 attack, making him incredibly powerful on the turn and then after on the next turn as well. So one of the best heroes in the set, in my opinion, is KO. This is a good time to talk about the 3 different tokens in the set, starting with my personal favorite and the one that I think is the best, Agility. You can create agility tokens via card effects, and it says at the start of your turn, you destroy it, so remember to trigger it at the start of your turn, and your next attack this turn gains Go Again. That is very, very good because Go Again in this set isn't printed on many cards, and so agility is your way of doing that. Might is created again off of card effects, and it says at the start of your turn, destroy this, so remember your triggers. Then your next attack this turn gets +1. This can apply to weapons. This can apply to attack action cards. This is very flexible and very good for certain specific attacks, like in Guardian we'll talk about later. And finally, you have Vigor. Vigor says at the start of your turn, destroy this, remember your triggers, and then gain 1 resource. And when you do gain that resource, you can use it on whatever you want, but making a Vigor token can oftentimes just open up an extra card that you can now play, which means that your blocks become a lot more flexible, and Vigor can be quite powerful. Plus, that art is very cool looking. Speaking of Guardians, there are 2 Guardians that you can play as in this set. The first one being Betsy, who has a strong effect that says you can pay 2 energy when you send an attack that wagers. When you choose to wager with one of your attacks, you can pay 2 energy, and if you do, you give +1 to that attack, and it gets overpower. Again, meaning that they can only defend with 1 action card. You can add block cards and other things like that, but only one action card can be added to the combat chain, making the attack that you're sending very likely to hit in this set because we don't have access to defense reactions. And if you are wagering on a variety of attacks via a variety of effects, you can be sending very large, very scary, on hits, like for example, Command Respect. If you attach a wager to this and then choose to wager it, this is going to push a ton of very scary on hits and damage because it says when this hits a hero, if it has attack greater than its base, destroy a card in their arsenal. Blows up their arsenal. This is CNC on a Guardian card. And then you have Concuss, which is basically pummeling because it says if this is attack greater than its base, discard a card. Yeah, just a really solid pummel effect, pummel-like effect. These powerful cards drive you into Guardian. If you see these and a good bit of blues, make sure you have the blues to actually pay for them. But if you see these things in concert, they are quite good. And perhaps the best thing that Guardians have going for them in this set is, well, right here. Auras that just establish themselves on the board and swing the tempo insanely, just insanely. If you find red and blue versions of Bigger Than Big or Big Bop even in your sealed pool, consider playing Guardian simply because you can start the game, choose to go first, play one of these and pass. And in doing so, you've next to guaranteed that you're going to send massive damage and take full tempo in the game. And this is a very, very real threat that I did lose to on 2 different occasions against 2 different great players because they found these big auras in the early game on turn 1 or turn 2 and basically just stole the game out from under me. This is a very powerful effect, and if you see them, consider Guardian. And that's not the only Guardian that you can consider, because the other Guardian you can play as is Victor Goldmane, who says the first time you make a gold token from one of your effects, you get to draw a card, which means if you find gold generation effects within your card pool, he could be a consideration. Now, there's not a ton of gold generation effects in the set, but there are enough to pull you in this direction. And the nice thing is, a lot of them are generic, which means that you can find them more easily and include them in Victor's build. He also says the first time each turn you would fail to win a clash, where you both flip the top, you get to destroy a gold, and if you do, put one of those cards to the bottom of the deck and clash again. So you can cycle yours or you can cycle your opponent's and try to win the clash. But the biggest thing that he can do is draw a card off of gold generation. So there are a variety of ways to generate gold. Let's see if we can go all the way down into the generics. In the very bottom of the generics, as you see right about, well, technically performance bonus can on hit create a gold, but money where your mouth is a great addition because it says your next attack this turn is +3 and wager a gold with them. This is one of the cards that if you pull, you could consider going into Victor because he can throw big attacks just like any Guardian can, and in doing so, he can draw himself extra cards for the arsenal or for other effects like that. He also, if you find yourself pulling something like a Test of Strength, which is a generic and it's a common, you can play this card and clash, hopefully win. If you don't, you try again with Victor's effect, and then make a gold token and draw a card. This card replaces itself in Victor. So he has a lot of huge value plays that he can make, and if you like playing a little bit of a stickier, kind of ticky-tacky game back and forth where you're trying to eke out value, Victor Goldmane is your man. And finally, we come to the Warriors, and near and dear to my heart, this set, I have fallen in love with Warrior. I'm currently jamming Warrior games on Talishar because it's been a blast, and one of those Warriors you can play as is Kasai. Perhaps the best hero in the set. You could argue Kasai, maybe you could argue KO, back and forth, but could be the best and most powerful hero in the limited format. Depends on who you ask, but she says if you've drawn a card, your sword attacks cost 1 less to activate. And once per turn action, banish 2 reds and 2 yellows from your graveyard. The next time a weapon you control hits a hero this turn, you get to make a gold token. Now, why do you care about the gold token? Well, it's a lot harder to make them for Kasai, but she has some insane mid-range, mid-game plays that she can start making when you have filled up reds and yellows in your graveyard off of the back of like a 1 to a 2 card hand. Kasai and just Warrior in general in this set can be very aggressive, but they can also be very grindy and like almost fatigue-like in a sense. And particularly Kasai, because if you activate an effect that draws you a card, all of a sudden your swords are free to swing with. And there are some great sword choices. You look at Centauri Saber and you're like, that's something that's been in the game since Crew. You're right, it has been, but it's very good. And Hot Streak is even better. If you find Hot Streak, and I have to stop and say this about this weapon, if you find Hot Streak, you should definitely consider playing a Warrior, because this is an incredibly demanding and powerful weapon in this set. And not to be outdone, we have Olympia. Olympia has a very simple effect that says the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, you just make a gold token. He can create massive amounts of gold off of the back of some very powerful sort of combo-ish cards. So for example, in this set, they have Brute/Warrior hybrid cards, and there are several very, very good ones like Wage Agility, which is a 7 power attack that costs a blue to pitch, or just 3 in general to play this out. And it is pushing a breakpoint, and you can wager, and asking for 7 block in this format is a tall order if your opponent doesn't find a lot of these tests, meaning that more often than not, even if you don't do anything to it, this card is likely to hit. And so if you win a wager, you're getting the wager effect, but you're also off of the back of playing this big, powerful attack that you want to do already, getting a gold. And the question has always been, since Olympia was spoiled, what's the payoff for creating all this gold? And the answer is this: you get a lot of gold. Gold is an incredibly broken token. I like broken token. I'm going to make that into a shop. I'm going to make that into a store. Broken token. Don't take that. I'm taking that. Gold is a broken token because if you pitch a blue for this, you're floating a resource and you replace the card you pitched, meaning that you go 4 cards into 3 cards with a resource and then 4 cards again. And then if you pitch another blue to crack another gold token, you are now floating another resource, and you pitch that blue and then you draw another card. So every time you pitch a blue into a gold token, you're replacing the card that you pitch for perhaps a better card, and you're generating more resources. That is incredibly good. The payoff for Olympia is gold tokens. I'm very passionate about Olympia because I played so much Olympia in the Battle Hardened, and it was just an absolute blast. Things you need to watch out for: if you have Rally the Rear Guard in your sealed pool in literally any color, it is a Windmill Slam must play. The blue is fantastic because it pitches blue and it blocks 5. The red is a 6 power attack that you oftentimes end up playing, but it can also block 5. The yellow is great in KO, but it also just sends 5 and blocks 5. These cards are super valuable in a set that does not have defense reactions. This is your defense reaction. You have to be very, kind of flexible and wide open to doing weird things that you wouldn't normally do in other sets. This also rings true for Reinforce the Line, which is nuts if you're playing as a Brute, because you can make very clean blocks. You're not going to get many of these Reinforce the Lines in your sealed pool, but if you pull just about any of them, I mean, particularly the red one, you can consider running them because it does make a 0 block card, a 3 or a 4 or a 2 block card, which is not bad. Not bad at all. And then, of course, we have to talk about Down But Not Out, because this was the contentious and very powerful card on the week and weekend. Because it says when this attacks a hero, if you have less life and control fewer equipment and tokens than them, this gets +3 overpower and you make every token. And there are going to be times, if you have this in your sealed pool, 1, play it. Doesn't matter the color because it's a blue cost, just call it that way, a blue cost 8 power overpower that blocks 3 in a pinch. The yellow attacks for 7 with the effect and blocks for 3 in a pinch. The blue pitches blue, blocks 3. It's a blue block 3 and can attack for 6 overpower in a pinch. All of that's to say that if you go second and your opponent hits you and you block with equipment and they make a token, you can immediately draw and play Down But Not Out for its effect. You have to hit all 3 of the effects. You have to have less life, you have to control fewer equipment, and your opponent has to have more tokens than you. But if you do that, this card breaks the game open. Wide open. I continue to say this: 7 attacks are the name of the game with this set. Pitching a blue to send 7 damage is the back and forth play line of this set. And whoever can find the moment to break that back and forth first, well, maybe not first, but in a more real, palpable way, will carve their way towards a win in this set. It's a grindy set, but it does not necessarily go to fatigue unless both players are, very, very, very good at blocking throughout the entirety of the game, simply because someone's going to find a window and a moment to break this 7 back and forth to really push some insane damage. And oftentimes it happens off of, the back of like the arsenal or off of the back of a creation of an agility token. And keep this in mind as well, there are a whole bunch of 2 blocks in this set. That makes it really, really fun, and it makes you have to really engage back and forth in the actual board state. So there you go, that's your pre-release guide, and honestly, I could talk about this for hours. This set is so incredible for limited. I just want to play more and more of it. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and I am going to, because I plan on going to pre-release here at my local game store and just having the best of times. So let me know what you think in a comment below, and if you want more starter guide type content like this where I just give you my info, make a number go to another number, because numbers going up, this is the thing that drives me deep in my soul. Numbers going slightly higher. As always, thanks for watching.